him. I am much more of a divisive character, not intentionally.
Are you and Marla friends now?
But if you won the food, it was like a fucking crocodile's ankle, a cabbage, and something and a bit of fruit you'd never heard of. Well done, Tasha. You've basically backed me into a corner now, so I can't.
Right, so we're back with another episode, and I've had to choose my questions a bit carefully today because this fella is literally twice my size. Rugby legend James Haskell. Hello, mate.
Hello, pal. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Yeah,
How's
I'm all
things?
good.
Right, before we go anywhere, how's the surgery gone? All good?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I had it's actually my 13th surgery. I had my called a subtalar joint fusion, and when I saw the surgeon, I knew he was obviously fixing a joint in my ankle that had no cartilage. And sort of post 6 weeks, I went and saw him, and he'd had an X-ray of my ankle on his screen, and he showed it to me, and I just said, "Fuck, what are you talking about? That's not real photos," because it looked like AI. Because obviously it's a healthy ankle with two giant screws right through. They drilled straight through my heel. They're about that big, and there's two of them to fix the joint. So, that was slightly surprising. He said, "Yeah, that's why we don't show you before we do the operation." But it was, it's okay. I mean, I have good days and bad days, but in comparison to where I was before, I'm able to walk around much better. I don't know whether biomechanically it's going to hurt my back a bit. My back's, I've had a few issues with it. It's a bit more sore, but it's part of the rigours of having played rugby. You know what I mean? You just have to just deal with it.
Yeah, mate. Well, last time we saw you, you were hosting an event for the Autumn Nations.
Yes.
Now, when we met, do you remember the wig?
Yes, I do remember the wig. Yeah,
we didn't bring it with us.
Yeah, it was a good wig actually. I remember, because I was in a pub, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I was sort of DJing at the end of it. Yeah, and I remember the wig was great. And I put it on as well, didn't I?
You did. There is photographic evidence that will never see the light of day.
Well, you can put it up if I look good in it, or don't look good in it. Put it up.
Good in it, mate. Mate, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much. Obviously, a legend of the game. So I wanted to kick things off. What's something a random fact that people might not know about you?
So the only qualification I've got is that I'm a trained operator on a 360 digger, so like an excavator, 10 ton and above, and I can work on any building site in the UK. Now, the idea behind that was, I'm obsessed with diggers. I used to work with JCB. That was my first sort of dream is when I got into the sort of public eye, utilising what limited sort of fame I had, was to start working with JCB. They used to lend me a digger that I used to go and drive to and from training, and I used to go and do a load of like work at a local cider farm, taking out trees and bits while listening to kind of house music. So my idea is that if I get cancelled in this kind of bizarre world we live in, well, I'm pretty certain that they'll accept you on any building site, bar a couple of caveats. I think if you're obviously a nonce, I'm not, they won't. If you've, I think they'd even probably take a murderer as long as you killed a bad person. So I'm not planning on doing any of those things, but I just think it'd be quite a good backup plan, just so I can go and level some ground, dig some footings, do whatever. So I think it's the perfect kind of retirement plan. And if you're good at it, you get paid a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. That is wild. Never knew that about you.
No.
Never thought that.
No, I know. So, I mean, if you look on YouTube, search James Haskell JCB, you see me driving all sorts of machinery, driving a fast track tractor to training, and this one is the biggest one they had. It's called it was an 8000, and the wheels on it were 12. So basically, it's 12 foot high to the top of it, and you had to get a ladder to climb into the cab. And I drove it to training, and it's as wide as the road. It goes up to about 35, 40 miles an hour, but in that, it feels like you're going 100 miles an hour. And I drove to training, and what normally takes half an hour probably took 45 minutes, an hour. I never had to concentrate more because, if you hit a bump in the road or you hit the curb and you readjusted, you just go through someone's car, through someone's garden, you wouldn't even notice, and you carried on. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, again, but the weird thing is you don't need extra insurance to drive tractors on the road. Obviously, you need to be qualified to drive diggers on building sites for insurance, but that's it. That's my big plan. Actually, there's days I try to drive around London, and I see guys on normal JCBs, 180s they're called, and the ones with like the backhoe in the front of it, like digging up roads. And I think, what a good life that would be.
What a great life, yeah.
Just very simple. The only problem is in the summer, because they've changed all the rules now, you can't take your shirt off. So I sort of had visions of sort of shirt off, tunes blazing, to drill into the road and laying tarmac and doing bits. So, but maybe it might happen. We'll never know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everything else works
Well,
out
I
first, but yeah.
hope so. But you never know.
James, I want to get into my first feature, right? Yes. And I think that you'll like this one.
Okay.
It's called Wiki, fact check is real.
Okay.
That's always the reaction I get.
Yeah, is everything all right at home? Yeah.
So with this one, mate, extensive research has been done, but I do also check out people's Wikipedia pages.
Okay.
So I want to do a little bit of fact checking, but a lot of this is obviously going to be about your rugby career. So we're going to talk about that. So first point that the Wikipedia said about you were born in 1985 as James Andrew Wellborn Haskell.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. So I've got a full name. I've actually dropped it for my daughter. My dad sadly passed away. He's not here anymore, but we didn't argue, but I think my dad added the Wellborn part as a bit of like trying to be more sort of smart or well-to-do. I don't know if that's true. My mum denies it and saying it wasn't, and my dad was very upset that I dropped it off the name. But I never really used it. It was a bit of a bizarre sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I know it wasn't double barrel, but it was sort of a bit of a weird middle name.
Gotcha.
So my daughter's name is Bodie Ray Georgia Haskell, and so we put two names in. Basically, she didn't like Bodie, but mine's James Andrew Wellborn Haskell. But Wellborn, I don't know where it comes from. It's a bit like my old man. I sort of felt it was a bit like Del Boy, so I think he sort of maybe thought this time next year, Rodney, we're millionaires, and what we've been missing is Wellborn, or a double barrel name. But I've never used it.
Not for now, no. It says here, obviously, England former rugby union player who played in the Aviva Premiership, chiefly as a flanker for Wasps and Northampton Saints, and you made your debut at London Wasps, at age 18, becoming their youngest ever Premiership player.
Yes, I think that record's now probably been broken, but I was pretty young, and some kids now are kind of 17 and X amount of days. But yeah, I was very young. I literally just finished school. I did a pre-season in my lower six. Then I went back into my last senior year. The day that I finished my A levels, I had 2 weeks off, went straight into pre-season training, and then I started the first Premiership game.
Jeez. So tell me about your debut, man. Like, tell me about the Wasp debut. How did it make you feel and making that jump up from playing like local club level to then going into like Wasps?
Oh, I mean, so I think for me, I was probably pretty unprepared for it. I didn't have a particularly good game. I was playing against Harlequins. We lost. Our former captain and sort of rugby legend Rob Howley, kind of on Sky, sort of blamed me for the loss. So it wasn't a great start, and I didn't feature again that year. So it was a bit of a sort of a trial by fire, and I made the silly mistake after the game, going on sort of one of those sort of fan forum things and just reading what people wrote about me.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, and that's always it's almost like a bit of a form of self-harm. So I learned the lesson never to do that again. So yeah, I mean it was good to do it, but it just didn't go very well. I was probably shocked by the speed, the intensity, the kind of requirements. I was just very unprepared. And I think whenever you make a step up, you think you're sort of going to be okay. But the gulf between, warm-up games and sort of club rugby to full men's Premiership was mind-bending, really.
And then walking into like Wasp Stadium and going through that motion, obviously you've been playing for years beforehand, but having the crowd there and all of that lot, obviously you said that you started off with a loss, but the anticipation of hearing the crowd with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, because the first game we played away at the Stoop, and it was a big game. It was the summer. I remember Hugo Monnier scored a try. He's a fellow teammate of mine. He's a really good guy. And so, I just think that intensity, but you don't really notice the crowd. You're sort of so focused on what you're trying to do. It's only as you get later on in your career do you start appreciating those moments. I think I certainly, when I made my debut for England, that was a much bigger moment where I sort of, because you have to sing the anthems, you sort of get much more into it.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about internationals in a bit, but Wasps, you were there 2002 to 2009. You got Premiership titles and the Heineken Cup as well. And then you made the move over. You went to France for 2 seasons at Stade Francais. Then you went to Japan for a bit for the Ricoh Black Rams. Played Super Rugby in New Zealand for the Highlanders for a bit. Question that I wanted to ask you, was it a bit of a culture shock playing in different continents, different styles of rugby? Like, how different was it to the English game?
Yeah, massively. I think there's always a culture shock when you go anywhere, and I think I moved to Paris for 2 years. Didn't really speak French, and that was massive. And I was massively criticised for making that move because people said that I'd sort of given up on my England career and I was a money grabber or whatever. But actually, my contract at Wasps was always a shambles. They always offered me a pay cut. I was the lowest paid England player at the time, and they messed around. And I didn't think Wasps had invested in their kind of squad, so I went and played in Paris. Had this amazing time for 2 years with Stad. We had a brilliant owner called Max Cuisini, who was a marketing genius. He invented the pink shirts that people see. He pioneered something called the Dieu de Stade, the Gods of the Stadium calendar, which was this kind of art calendar, but it was kind of a celebration of masculinity. And it was, some of it was pretty racy. So I ended up doing that a few times. Then I left to go to Japan. Japan, again, not a lot of people knew about Japanese rugby. When you look at 2019 World Cup, yes, they sort of created some massive moments, I think beating South Africa, but no one really knew. And then they sort of found this amazing country, the discipline, how passionate they are. University sides over there were playing in front of 60,000 people. Bear in mind the Premiership, we could barely get at 5,000 in Adams Park at the time in High Wycombe for Wasps. So that was amazing. And then obviously learning about yourself, being in a different country, no one's really watching you, the discipline that required was a really nice lesson. And then going to New Zealand, the kind of heartland of rugby, if you're going to play rugby, then going to a country where the national sport is rugby was an amazing kind of challenge for me. And again, moving to Dunedin, I lived in a place called St. Clair, right next to the beach. That was a massive moment for me as well, kind of being there on my own, a million miles away. I mean, Dunedin and Invercargill slightly, different again, but it's like sort of England, or it was when I was there, like England 1970s sort of time, and sort of stood still, very quiet. And I basically just spent the whole time doing sort of boxing, jiu-jitsu, occasional bit of hunting, and then traveling to different places playing rugby, and it was an amazing experience. I wanted to stay there and do more. Wasps invited me back. I never did another 6 years at Wasps, 1 year at Northampton, and retired 2019.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, within those years that you did as well, obviously it was the last year, 2019, that you were doing, but you won some incredible major titles. I've got here that you got 2 Heineken Cups and 4 Premierships.
Yeah, no, so that's not right. So we got...
that's the first one we've had that's not right.
Yeah, so we've got... we won 2 Heineken Cups and one Premiership. I wasn't involved in the first Premiership. I was too young. That was sort of 2000. They did the double, I think 2003, maybe 2004, 5. I was going to be named on the bench, didn't make it, so I didn't play in the first one. But then the other ones I was involved in, I ended up winning four Six Nations with England and 1 Grand Slam. So that was kind of my record in that. But to win one Heineken Cup, some guys never get any close to that. And winning 1 Premiership as well was amazing. We got to the final, I think 2016, 17, and we lost to Exeter when we probably should have won.
Really?
Yeah.
It's always a tough one when you get that, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's particularly because it came down to we were winning. Someone gave a penalty away. They didn't really need to do it. They then kicked it, went to extra time, which was wild. We ended up playing like 116 minutes. Jesus. And then in the last few minutes, a scrum penalty went down. I think they kicked the winning thing, or they scored a try or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a very narrow win. And actually that was when I was a senior player, which I think would have meant more if we'd won it that day.
Yeah. Fucking hell, mate. Well, in all of that as well, you had your international career.
Yeah.
So I got here that you played for England between 2007 to 2018, making 77 appearances. Yeah. The final game of the Six Nations against Wales was your debut.
Yeah. So that was in 2007. That was the final game. I'd got picked to train in the squad in 2007, the week before against France. And there's a mad story with that. I won't get so long one, but the last part of it was essentially the coach met me in a car park on the Sunday night before the week of training and told me, listen, we haven't made our minds up. We've got no idea who we're going to pick in the squad. Everything you do is going to be watched. You need to be really up for it. It's going to be a really big week. This is how it works. Meet up on a Sunday night, have a beer, meet the players. Monday morning's a big training session with the forwards, and the backs go off. Then in the afternoon, you come together. Then Tuesday morning, we have a massive session, sort of possibles versus probables. And if you play really well, you will stay on the Tuesday afternoon, then you stay for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And if you don't play well or don't train, and we'll be watching everything, and so, no minds have been made up, we will let you know Tuesday lunchtime and you'll go home.
Yeah.
So I said, thank you very much, got my kit bag with my initials sewn into it, thought I was the bollocks, walked straight into reception, checked into the hotel, and the receptionist said, no problem, here's your room key, it says you're checking out Tuesday.
Oh.
So I, and then you sort of go, well, hold on a minute. The coach has said there must be a mistake, and they're like, no, you're going home Tuesday, and that was from the receptionist. So they'd already made their mind up. So then thinking England either beat France or lost, but there was an injury, and then we went into the final game, and I made my debut. Yeah, it's at the Millennium Stadium. It was called Principality now.
Yeah.
Was an amazing experience, but we fortunately lost that game. And my last game against Ireland, 2018, was the last game for Ireland to win the Grand Slam, and we lost that. So I started and I lost and finished and I lost.
At least you're consistent, mate.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, both of them were like magical moments. But I didn't know 2018. I didn't know it was my last game.
Yeah.
But then I didn't get picked to go on the tour. They went with another player they thought was good. They ended up sacking that player off. And by the time I was sort of back in the frame, I couldn't stay fit long enough to play, so I had to retire.
Well, talk to me about your debut. Let's go right back to the Principality. So there must have been a huge difference between the debut for the Wasps and the debut for England. I know that you were saying about the national anthem, but just talk to us about like how you were feeling at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting into that training week, obviously having been dropped by the receptionist. I sort of didn't believe anything that was sort of told to me. I wasn't sure I was going to play. Then they decided to start an all Wasps back row. It's the first time one club had provided all the players for back row. As myself, Tom Rees, and a guy called Joe Worsley, playing at the Principality. I didn't really know what to expect. I never thought I was going to be an England player. I never wanted to be a rugby player really up until the age of 15. And then I sort of got into it. And I got into it because I loved the game. But what I loved more, now I look back on it, was the fact it was like a very linear pathway for success. You got good feedback. If you trained well, worked hard, sacrificed, played well, your team played well, you'd get picked again. Whereas in the real world, it's very difficult to know tangibly whether you're successful. Is it the car you have, the salary you have? You very rarely win accolades. You very rarely have to compete each week. Whereas in sport, it just goes like that, and you get them to the next honour. And so I got that selection, and it was wild. And then sort of when we left the hotel to go to the stadium, we sort of had these motorbike outriders, and we drove out the stadium into Cardiff. And as we got into Cardiff, people were just lying in the streets and were booing, throwing shit at the bus.
Really?
Like kids giving you the finger. Everyone just telling you to get fucked. It was like wild. People throwing shit. It was really hostile. And when we just got to the stadium, a guy jumped over the barrier, took his shirt off. He had what looked like a dragon tattoo, but he was quite big, so it sort of looked. It could have been fucking the elephant, but it was anything. And he then headbutted the bus, shouting "Fuck England!" Split his head. Security tackled him, and then we went into the stadium. And you're just like, wow, this is wild. We've seen blood, blood, carnage, people throwing stuff at the bus, being told to get fucked, and the game hasn't even started. And then we sort of went into the change rooms, got together, ran out for a warm up, and typical kind of Wales or one of these countries, the Welsh guys warm up on one side, we warm up on the other.
Yeah.
On our side, they sent through like a fucking 500-piece brass band. But that eats up all the space to train. That I looked at them, and there wasn't even 500. There wasn't 500 instruments to play. Yeah. They had people playing like ironing boards. a guy was playing what looked like a coat hanger. Another guy was like had a broom, and it was just they were just taking the piss. And then they sort of bring this huge. Well, it's a national thing. It's like this goat thing, but it's basically a polar bear. They've stuck horns on, and it's terrifying. And they're sort of walking around and trying to eat the ball boys and trying to headbutt everybody. And then you sort of go in.
Was it the same geezer who headbutted the bus?
Well, yeah, probably. I mean, this thing would have eaten it. I mean, if this thing had headbutted the bus, it would have gone through it. And then you go back in, have those final moments, pull that shirt on, put your anthem jackets on, go out to warm up, and you line up and you sort of link arms, and they start singing the English national anthem, and you're just like, well, I was like, wow, this is the greatest moment. The hairs went on the back of my arm, back of my neck. It was such a big occasion, big stage. I became instantly addicted. I was like, I want more of this. This is why you sacrifice. This is why you don't have holidays. This is why you play in pain. This is why you do it. And I just wanted more. And that was and then we lost. I played okay. Then we had it was a World Cup year, so then we had we met up to a warm-up camp in 2007 in a place called Browns in Portugal. Mm-hmm. We trained. I played. Didn't play the first warm-up game. Played the second warm-up game, and then got a call 2 days later to say, "Look, we're not going to pick you to go to the World Cup, but you need to stay on standby." And actually, that was a World Cup where they lost the first game in South Africa. Everyone said they're going to lose. The coaches basically didn't really have a good game plan. The players had a revolt, and they got all the way to the final, and they narrowly lost to South Africa. But I wasn't involved. Yeah, it was wild. And then from that point onwards, we then toured New Zealand 2008, and that was insane. And I was basically involved from that point onwards till 2018. There was a part where I obviously went to New Zealand and somewhere else, so I missed a year, but that was post World Cup, where we had the most shambolic World Cup in the history of sort of sport in 2011. People were getting sued, people were getting wrongly accused of stuff. It was utter chaos.
Wow.
All the staff got fired. So yeah, it's been a real roller coaster, but it's been amazing moments, but also some pretty carnage moments.
Well, one of the things that I did want to ask you is 2017, you played for the British and Irish Lions,
Yes.
which for most rugby players that I've spoken to before coming here is the pinnacle of any rugby
Yeah.
player's career. Talk to me about that.
So, I mean, it's a hard one, again, because I had an amazing time on the Lions tour. I got to bond with players that I'd never met before. You know, international sport is so competitive that very rarely do you sit around and have a drink with your opposition. You know, you're playing against Ireland, Scotland, Wales.
Which famously all fucking hate us.
Yes, whatever. Yes, exactly. And sort of then you've got to come together and unite. I wasn't originally picked, and then I played that final. I said 116 minutes rugby. One of my teammates, Billy Vinapola, got injured, or I think he was playing for Saracens at the time, and I got a call up saying, "Do you want to go?" Well, I first got a call up. I was out for lunch with my parents the next day, so we played on the Saturday. This is the Sunday. I get a call from Warren Gatland, who used to coach Wasps back in the day. I didn't know he still had my number. Called me. It's like, "Has, mate, do you want to go on tour?" I said, "Are you fit?" I said, "Yes." He hung up. Then he called me back about 3 hours later. He goes, "Would you like to go on the Lions tour?" I said, "Yes, I would, thank you." And he goes, "Okay, I'll let you know." Hang up again. And my dad was like, "Who's calling us?" I says, "Warren Gatland." And he goes, "Well, maybe going on tour." And I said, "Well, I don't know." He keeps hanging up on me and saying, and then he eventually called back a third time. Was like, "Right, we want to take you on tour. You've got to meet up." I think it was on Sunday night or Monday. And you're coming to New Zealand. So then I went on that tour, got to bond with these players: Rory Best, Johnny Sexton, Dan Bigger, Tyke Furlong, Stuart Hogg, all these guys that I'd never really met before. Got on really like a house on fire, but I never made the test side. Which again, when you're a competitive sportsman, is you want to reach the pinnacle. But I played 4 times the Lions midweek, didn't get close to the test side. So, you know, I don't really regard myself. I'm a Lion, but I don't regard myself as a proper Lion because I didn't get to take the field in those 3 test match series, but we drew that. That was wild. I made friends for life, stories for life. Again, in a rugby heartland, and it was incredible.
Yeah, mate, honestly. Like prior to filming this, I spoke to a few people and they were like, that is incredible.
Yeah.
To get
Look,
there. Like,
yeah, I mean, look, and I think I'd missed the boat. You know, 2009 was the next Lions tour after the World Cup. I was quite young, but I'd been playing well, and I didn't have a good Six Nations, so didn't make that. 2013, was it 2000? Yeah, 2013, I didn't make that. Again, I didn't play well at the right time. 2017, I thought I'd missed the boat, you know, and then obviously I retired, but I got that chance to do that, and that was wild, and that will stick with me as one of the best memories I've ever had, touring with guys. I shared a room with Sean O'Brien, which was a revelation in itself. I mean, he used to shit with the door open and sing Irish farmer songs to me, which was wild. But the guys were just brilliant, and you know, he was an amazing player. I wanted to learn from Sean. You know, working with Sam Warburton was brilliant as well. So just all these moments were really, really important to me and will always stay with me for the rest of my life.
Nice, man. Well, it says here, during your career, you won a Grand Slam with England in 2016. You got 3 of the Six Nations titles.
Yeah.
And also you got the Man of the Series in 2016 on the Australian tour, only playing 2 games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was when I actually ruptured my the ligaments in my big toe on my left foot. I tore my plantar plate, which is a really important part of your foot, and my big toe ligament. So I didn't play the third game. But that was a really amazing tour. Again, Eddie Jones took over after 2015. I didn't really play much in that World Cup. I thought my England career was potentially over. Eddie Jones came in, took over, completely revitalised me, revitalised England, created an amazing professional environment, took us on an unbeaten winning streak of, a world record equaling unbeaten streak of something. It was maybe 12, 15 games. It might be more than that, 17 games, I don't know. But we narrowly lost their Grand Slam to Ireland, which ruined that. Yeah. And then we'd obviously went to Australia, won there. I then had to retire. He then took him to a World Cup final. So it was an amazing experience. And I played my best rugby under him. He was by far and away the best coach I ever worked with. And it was brilliant, really. I wish I'd had him earlier on in my career.
Yeah, well, it leads on quite nicely because I've got a statement from a BBC article here from Eddie Jones about you, and it said it was a privilege to coach him, but also great fun. He's what I'd describe as a glue player, someone who's always tried to bring the squad together. His tour in Australia in 2016 sticks in my mind. He was absolutely outstanding on that tour, amazingly physical, uncompromising, and just totally dominant. Not only a superb player, but also one of the game's great characters. Rugby will be a poorer place without the old fella.
He loved calling me old fella. He used to come down in the morning and go, Hess, mate, looking old, mate. I mean, he goes, I'll get you a protein shake, mate. He'd go and make me a protein shake in front of the lads and shit like that. And he'd be like, he was just wild, Eddie, but like in the best possible way. I learned so much from him. And honestly, I had 5 England coaches during my time in England, and he was head and shoulders above the rest of them. And we had the best experience. He had the best coach around in Paul Gustard, Steve Borthwick. And they just created an amazing, amazing environment that I was very lucky to play in. I had 50-odd caps when he took over. If he took on Ole, I probably would have had 100. I think if I'd kept in there. Finishing on 77 was amazing. You look at guys now who've had 3 or 4 Centurions, reached that point. And I actually sat at Twickenham the other day, and I think I was Jamie George, maybe he's reached 100, or Courtney certainly had. And I looked back at my career and I thought, injury wasn't really a factor until the last kind of years, but there was one bit when I was away, but it was kind of other players they tried to experiment with, and probably another 20 odd caps sort of went that way, really. And obviously with, I think it was one where I got banned a bit. So, but I could have easily got to that point, and it was one of those things you always want more. I'm very satisfied with what I did, but we're the only creatures in the animal world that put stool by numbers and count things and stuff. But actually, to have got into that sort of hallowed 100 caps would have been unbelievable. But 77, I'll take.
Well, what would you say would be the most memorable game you ever played, whether it was nationally or internationally?
I think one of the biggest games I remember, the first test in Australia, second test actually, I think I played better, which was great for me. I think the one game that really sticks with me was Stuart Lancaster had taken over. I was playing Super 15 at the time. I was playing 7 for the Highlanders. Had an amazing experience. Got called up to go on the tour of South Africa, and I think Stuart Lancaster's plan for me was he wanted to reintroduce me. He was big on all this kind of I don't know what you want to talk about, but like sort of cultural. Some of it was bollocks, some of it was good, but it was kind of around. I had X amount of caps. I think probably had 45, maybe 46 caps or something at the time, and he wanted to maybe more, and he wanted to kind of reintroduce me to the squad, and he wanted me there to see what I was about, see whether I was a good player or not, see whether I'd fit into his culture. I was seen probably as not a troublemaker, but as a big character that he didn't necessarily fit into what he wanted to. But again, I think he found pretty quickly that I was very very professional, very very hardworking. Went on that tour. They played the first 2 games. First test they got quite close. Second test they got pumped. Third test, Chris Robshaw broke his thumb in the second test.
Right, yeah.
They called me up to start 7, and I came in and I made 33 tackles, I think, that day. Heinrich Meyer, the South African coach, came up and said, you were the difference between the 2 sides that had been missing in the first. So that was a massive accolade for me. And actually, bizarrely, Stuart Lancaster dropped me to the Saxons after that. But it was that that was a huge moment, just a real vindication, and also just to show what I could do physically, and how important that game was. We got a draw at Port Elizabeth at a stadium, and I had a great time in South Africa, but it was a very different culture then. But that was a real moment where I needed to stand up and deliver. They didn't have a lot of faith in me, as is evident by the fact that it dropped me afterwards. But to get that from a South African coach, again, with South Africa, they're traditionally the most physical side. I delivered what I needed to do, you know?
Yeah, wild. Hardest person you played against?
There's been a few. There's some pretty big. I mean, guys like Chris Halafir for Harlequins were pretty big. I think back in the day, best player was obviously I think Richie McCaw. Marnonu was pretty amazing. Back row players, I was Pierre Spies for South Africa. I was really kind of lucky with some of the big guys. I don't know if I can't remember if I ever played against Jerry Collins, but he obviously sadly passed away. But he was an unbelievable player. But the toughest by far was Henry Tuolangi. I mean, he was the size of a small porter cabin with a face. And he used to just run with just an utter abandonment for his own safety and everybody else's. He was such a big guy, and I'd watch him vaporize people in both the tackle and the carry. And so he was somebody that whenever you saw him, you were like, Christ, this is gonna hurt.
I remember watching him on telly, and I was just like, you would not pay me enough fucking money.
No, people did try to stop him, but it was more he used to have this arm guard that was like made of adamantium, the same thing that Wolverine's claws are made of. And you used to have stuff as a kite mark. You used to have it like approved, but no referees had the balls to ask him what was in it. and it had a sort of a thin layer of rubber over this thing, and he used to just fucking disintegrate people. And so I always saw that as a really physical challenge. Playing against Leicester, playing for Leicester. I don't think I ever played against Samoa, but I played against him when he played at Perpignan, when I was at Stade Francais. So he was a very big character. But actually, the way I played the game, most people I came up against were very, very physical guys. And so, yeah, but he definitely stands out.
Yeah. Christ, you couldn't, as I said, I couldn't pay me fucking any money for that. Now, James, I've got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Are you and Marla friends now?
That's a good question. Yeah, I love Joe. It's interesting because, you're obviously referring to that thing with the incident where he sort of squirt water on me and pulled my scrum cup. He actually talked about it the other day. It's something it always comes out, he brings up. He's sort of always a bit disparaging about me. I saw him do something with Danny Kerr the other day where they were talking about the sort of hardest players, and he sort of threw my thing on the floor and said that I wasn't the hardest player, or a hard player, but I think he probably knows better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, people always joke about us having a fight. I was actually on my podcast and said, if someone wants to pay, I'll fight him.
You'll do it.
So, but I actually love Joe. Like he was incredible in the Traitors. He is been through a hell of a journey with his mental health. I think he's an unbelievable advocate and spokesman. I think he's a really, really nice guy. He's a good family man. He was a great player. He wasn't underrated, but I think when you look at his game and how well he used to play in terms of how destructive he was as a tackler, how good he was as a scrummager. I spent a load of time with him and Dan Cole in New Zealand. We used to go to escape rooms on our days off and just do that all the time. Because it was very weird because, when you play for England or play for the Lions, and particularly someone like New Zealand, they're looking to catch you out a lot. There's a lot of fans, 50,000 fans travel. That can create problems. There's a lot of pissed people, lots of people sort of wanting to cause chaos. And so we just took ourselves off well out of the way, went and did all these escape rooms. I love Joe. I think he's brilliant. But again, him and I are very different. I think if you look at his fan base that he has, people absolutely love him. I am much more of a divisive character, not intentionally. So people sort of, everyone, you either don't know Joe or you love Joe. Right. You know me, but there's sort of the amount of people who dislike me is as much as people who like me, really, maybe more, maybe less. You never know. And so we're very different people, but I absolutely love him, and we'll always be friends. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Joe's a really good mental health advocate, but I know also you are as well, and how mental health is for you. So, Why is it that you advocate for mental health?
Well, a number of reasons. I started getting therapy when I was 17 to help with performance and being consistent in performance. And through that process of seeing a therapist, I saw an amazing lady called Dr. Jill Owen, who we originally went to perform consistently. So when you're playing 30 games a season, you can't do that on emotion, and actually still to this day, people hugely underestimate how powerful the brain is, how powerful your emotions are, how powerful your subconscious is, how powerful that inner voice is, and how you would lift weights to train your body, but very rarely does anyone do anything about their brain. And I saw the importance of mental health. It helped me with my game. I uncovered lots of stuff about myself in terms of how I probably wasn't particularly self-confident, not in terms of how gregarious I was as a person, but didn't deal with criticism very well, was in my own head a lot, didn't really believe in myself, didn't deal with criticism very well, didn't deal with negative media very well, had a lot of negative thoughts about myself, not in terms of taking my life. That wasn't that was never a case. It was much more about kind of, that negative thinking. What happens if I make a mistake? What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? And sort of, I understood through visualization, what they call now manifesting and everything else, that you can change the way your brain works, the way you think about yourself, and you actually stop and listen. You probably realize you're talking about yourself in a bad way. You're not really addressing what you need to be doing. So I understood the power of that. I get therapy now. I think it's the most essential thing. I would never have had the career or done the things I've done or dealt with the things that I've done, like my father's passing and all this stuff, in the way I have. And I think, Joe had a very different story. He got down some pretty dark pathways, I think, in terms of some of his thinking. And he's obviously had to go on antidepressants and various other things. But it sort of doesn't matter what your issues are. Everyone everywhere's got something going on. And it could be, from a small space of you don't like what you see in the mirror to, you're thinking about killing yourself. And the biggest killer of men under 40 is male suicide. Yeah. We're talking about mental health more than ever. I was 9 when I went and saw a psychologist when I was younger. I think my parents were quite frustrated with me, couldn't concentrate, couldn't sit still. And was obviously probably not focusing. So I went and saw a proper psychologist. They diagnosed me, put me on Ritalin. I took that till I was about 16. Then or 17, I think the week before my first game for England under 18s, the doctor asked me what I was taking. I said Ritalin. He went fucking mad. I was like, you should have told us that's a performance enhancing drug. So I had to stop that till it was out of my system. I never took it again. And I'd never met anyone for 20 years who ever talked about having ADHD or ADD or whatever. Now, I would say 4 times a day, someone volunteers. And I think we've got to a point now where we volunteer. Before, you would hide stuff, which isn't healthy, but also volunteering, or, I'm neurodiverse, I'm this, I'm that. That's fine if you are doing something about it. But if you're using it as a crutch, as an excuse, as a reason why that you're incompetent, late, can't concentrate, a bit of a prick, it's not helping you. So I think talking about mental health, diagnosis is the first step. It's good to know. Sometimes for parents, it's nice to understand why the kids are the way they are, or adults, it's good to know why you are. But that's step one. And then you've got to put the work in. And actually what you remember about mental health is you're never not going to be depressed. You're never not going to be anxious. You're never not going to have issues. What you got to remember is you get tools to manage them, so you get back on track quickly. So you've got depression. Sometimes it can lay people in beds for months, for ages. If you get tools and deal with it and speak about it and understand it, you could go, maybe 2 days out, then a day out, then an hour out, then 10 minutes out, and then you're back on track. That's the difference. And I think with men in particular as well, the biggest reasons that men commit suicide is relationships, partners, is access to kids, and is money on the table. And a lot of these charities, they talk about it, but what are they doing to change that? Are they looking at the court system? And also what we're doing to help people with debt. I mean, that's just going to keep going. And I think I've never been there, but if you get to the understanding that, do you think the world's better without you, then people take their lives and they leave kids, they leave families, because they think that's the right thing to do. And it never is the right thing to do, you know, and but you can't see that out of it. So way out of it. So I try to really speak to men in particular. There's a lot, and there's a Dr. Holloway. There's a guy who wrote a book called Notes on a Man. I think I'm just reading it at the moment, and he talks about America, but there's this whole lost generation of men that are not progressing to university, are not building relationships. There's some horrific stat that most men have not had a physical conversation with a woman
Right.
that wasn't online. If you have a son and a daughter, the daughter's progressing because they mature quicker, more often than not, socially more intelligent, and every test, most women are more intelligent than men, you know, and so they're kind of progressing, and men are being left behind, and they're sitting in their rooms vaping, digesting this bullshit, and then, you know, blaming women for them not having sex, and things like that, which is just bollocks. And, you know, like, and again, then you've got the other side where, you know, men have had it very, 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 very good for a long time, and misogyny is alive and real. But it should be through an education piece and sorting that imbalance out. It shouldn't be damming down another sex. So, you know, I would never do down women. I wouldn't expect women to do down men. You should go, we're very different creatures. How can we celebrate each other's diversity? The world needs strong men, and you need that balance between different emotions, practicality, and everything else that goes with it. When actually civil conversation, education, understanding, working together, celebrating our differences, understanding that, you know, there's lots of education around things, is really important. So for me, I just want men to be like, look, you know, it's tough at times, but it's tough for women as well. I fully get that, but just I can't speak on that behalf because I'm not a woman. I can't understand that. I can only be a good role model for men, and I really want to help that. And I also think, you know, toxic masculinity is like a massive area at the moment. But I don't believe toxic masculinity exists. I think if you're a misogynist and a bad person, you're always going to be a bad person. Yeah. It's nothing to do with you being a man. It's just what you are. I think schooling's got a big part to play. You know, teaching, not, you know, same-sex schools, not teaching kids the importance of equality, and understanding those things. And so I just want to go, look, I think you can be a strong man, you can be a provider, you can be a dad, but you can be vulnerable, you can put your hand up, you can be self-aware, you can learn, you can understand the importance of equality, you know, and things like, you know, I say it with businesses on International Women's Day, like, you know, have you post all this stuff, but have you changed like maternity leave? Have you covered the things that women need? If you don't know, the answer is often they haven't. So, but I can only talk about men. I just want guys to go, look, I think being a good parent, a good role model is through discipline in your how you treat your body. I think discipline in how you treat your mind, how you treat other people, because that's a choice, and how hard you work. And those are the only things you can control. And so I feel very strongly about these things.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you're such an incredible advocate, because actually my love for rugby came from a really sad situation that I lost basically 3 people in 10 days whilst I was traveling the other side of the world.
Yeah.
One of those people was my cousin Dean, who is more like a brother. We were 9 days apart, super, super close, went through school and everything together. And he went down the rugby route and I stayed with the football route.
Yeah.
And what had happened is that whilst I was traveling in Southeast Asia, he was playing a rugby game, and he collapsed on the rugby pitch. And what had happened is he then got taken to hospital. I got a phone call, flew home as soon as I can.
Is it a heart defect or something?
It was a heart defect. And what it was is, I can't remember the actual name for it, but apparently he was missing a valve in his heart.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. It's like, I don't know what, there's like all sorts of things, but they now test a lot of athletes to have, because we see it with footballers, we see it with people that on the surface, very healthy people, just drop down.
Yeah.
And actually, there's players that I know have had those heart tests and been picked up. And so, you know, when I was playing under 19s or under 20s with on 21s with England, I can't remember, but kid from Ireland, my mate Paul Doran-Jones was playing for Ireland at the time. As a young number 7, running around, boom, just basically dropped dead on the field.
It's wild. Like,
and
then like, so Dean then went through, the operation was fine. I was in a taxi at this point, like 6 hours away from the airport. Got to the airport, FaceTimed my mum, and my mum said he didn't make it. So I then spent 20 hours or 19 and a half hours knowing that, and then came home. And honestly, I was numb for about 8 months.
Yeah.
Just went and did shitty little jobs just to get by. Didn't know where I was going. But the one thing that picked me up, and I will shout them out constantly, was not only Dean's friends, but Harlow Rugby Club.
Yeah.
Those are the people for me that genuinely picked me up when I needed it, like physically as well. Like I there was one point I was, you know, you get like the books to remember someone.
Yeah.
Started writing in that, and I just lost it. I sobbed and all that lot. So Harlow Rugby Club for me has always been like a second family. But something that I wanted to ask you about is rugby culture, because from my experience with rugby culture, being someone who was in footballing background previously, and now as a fan of rugby, watching the rugby, I wouldn't play. I'm not too fucking brittle for that now. But Do you think rugby culture gets a bad rap?
I think where rugby culture comes from is most people experience it at university for the first time. A lot of schools don't play it. They go to universities. The rugby teams are always lunatics at universities. They do all these initiation, shave your hair, drink all these mad drinks. They get fucked up. And that's kind of what people's experience of it is. International rugby and elite level rugby is not like that at all. You know, we had some initiation, but nothing like that. I would never do that. I'd never drink a pint if someone's sick or fucking just wouldn't do it. Yeah. And so that kind of culture, I'm not saying anything is necessarily wrong with that, but it's also not a reflection. But, you know, elite level athletes, you know, male dominated environments, you know, you have pros and cons with all those things. You know, and I mean, I went to an all boys boarding school from 8 to 18, and then I went from all boys boarding schools into professional sport, which was essentially 40 men every year for 20 years.
Yeah.
You would have women around, but you wouldn't have teammates, you wouldn't have people. There wasn't women's rugby, you didn't have that kind of stuff. So I think you don't become out of that particularly rounded. Actually, it was my ex-wife who kind of really gave me much more of an education piece, and I started to watch, you know, how men treated women and things around that, you know, things around that stuff where, you know, we'd go and you talk to rugby fans and they'd only look at my ex to see if she was fit or not. And then we'd ask a question, she'd answer it, they'd ignore the answer and then ask me again.
Right, yeah.
And shit like that. You just, you know, but look, it wasn't an epidemic, but it just means you start clocking that and you start seeing that's not right, that's unfair, that's not correct. How do we talk about it? What kind of language do we use? You know, lads being around lads, you know, you end up sometimes using language or discussing things you probably shouldn't or stuff. So I think, look, it's not just rugby. I think that happens when people sometimes get together. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you know, just some of the education piece, even things like, you know, using like homophobe parlance and stuff like that, how, you know, that you kind of understand that's now not acceptable. I mean, and obviously not. And it's just when you look back at some of the stuff you'd say, how you sort of correct yourself and how, as we got through a career, you then say, no, that's not right, or don't do that, or that's inappropriate, or don't say that. And I think there's a lot of like self-policing. But actually, I think there's nothing wrong with rugby culture. I think, you know, I think it has a lot of really good values. And actually, I think team sport in general for both men and women is really important. It teaches you that there's stuff bigger than you, that you can't be an individual, that you have to adhere to bigger things, and those are really important lessons to help you in your life. So no, I think sports culture is a very important moment.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, again, there's a non-player. I played in school for a bit, but I think that my experience of rugby culture has literally just been the family. I feel like rugby players and fans have got way more respect than football players. And again, I love football still as well. But you see some of the stuff that goes on and the shit that happens in football, and you look at rugby players, and there's the odd one or two. But I feel like as a general consensus sweeping statement for me personally, always the rugby fans have been nicer.
I think when you look at football, it's the national sport. It's a national sport for a reason. The simplicity of it lends itself to that. You can play football with 2 jumps and a goalpost. You know, that famous cliche. You know, the hardest rule in football is the offside rule, which people still don't understand. That would be probably the easiest rule in rugby. Yeah. So you have a understanding of that. You have the fact that traditionally it was played in public schools. So there's that social boundary and that perception around that. And look, you know, lots of pricks play rugby. It happens. But I think they're both great sports. The big difference with football, again, is everybody. It's such a national. It's a national sport. It is a global sport. It is watched by everybody. The money, the TV rights is huge. The difference with rugby is that nobody on the field earns more than might earn more than the coach, but not so dramatically. And actually, it's not as an individual sport as football is. Yeah. You know, so when somebody doesn't conduct themselves well in a rugby team, you know, the coach will come out after a game and say, that's unacceptable. We saw that's shit. That's not what we believe in. Or I'm going to look into it, or we're going to discipline them. And you'd be accountable to your players. Yeah. You know, if someone like Neymar is a credible player, you know, he dives and rolls 500 times on the field, no one's going to say anything because he'll just transfer to someone else, or you know, he'll get the coach sacked or whatever. I'm not saying that he would do that, but I think that caliber of player would happen, and that's why you don't see it. And it's just there's not a lot of accountability. You know, you see, you know, if you've ever listened to 5 Live, drive time after a game. You know, you've got people calling up in tears about their football team. You know, they are just, you know, they live and breathe it. And rugby does not have that level of passion. And with passion on a bigger scale, you get those bigger moments and bigger talk about. So they are very different games. I think lots of things around the referee, and there's a reason why referee mics don't exist in football. It's because, you know, you'd be shocked by the way they talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, I think rugby referees have a lot more respect, and you should always have respect to the official. But equally, you know, you want the game to be run properly and have that level of accountability. And so, you know, for a while, I think it was a bit of a one-way street where the referees could make decisions and there'd be no accountability. They could ball something up, you'd lose a game.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of changed now. But it's also changed where they're now open to more criticism, and some of the stuff that's happened to rugby referees is awful, you know, and like you'd never condone that, you know. And I think a referee can get a decision wrong, but you don't have to personally attack him. And again, it just comes to with that advent of social media, the boundaries being reduced, what's society, you know, what's acceptable in society. I mean, look at you know, Donald Trump, whatever you think of him, you know, the way he would talk about other people and treat other people has now filtered down to other politics, where people will now just say things that there was a certain level of decorum that you would have on the political stage. You wouldn't go to places, you wouldn't say outlandish things. Everybody does it now, and it's just the erosion of where we are as a society, really, with what we accept. And also, when you look at everything else, people will do anything for content now. And so, what you digest, what you see, what your kids see, what, you know, there was sort of certain moral things that you wouldn't do and say. All of that's gone out the window now. So, and people will do anything. And I think the more we've become a society of kind of, you know, treating everyone as individuals, going at the pace of the slowest person, taking accountability, you lose discipline. You lose rules where, you know, sometimes you got to tell your kids. I know this parenting, softly approach, but, you know, if your kid's putting other people in danger, or himself in danger, or themselves in danger, or doing something else, you've got to fucking read and write, right? You've got to discipline. Schools have been depowered from what they can do, and that just all trickles down to everything. And so if your politicians don't have discipline, your school doesn't have discipline, it doesn't matter what sport you play, it all just falls apart.
Yeah, exactly. Before we put rugby to bed for the minute, mate, what's one of the funniest things that ever happened on tour with you?
I mean, there's been some wild stuff on tour. I mean, the one story that really surprised me. One time I was sitting next to a player in a change, a guy called Pierre Rabidan for Stade Francais, and he put his boot on to go out for the warm-up, and someone shit in his boot. And that was fucking wild. Like, I was wild. Like, I just didn't... He looked at me, and I was like, bro, it's not... My game, all that game was of pranks and doing stuff like that. You know, you'll never... I just never got involved in that, because it's a very slippery slope. You're playing with some lunatics who will literally do anything. I remember one of the guys, there's a great story about... a French player won his sort of 50th cap, and they gave, or 100th cap, and they gave him a pewter salver, and one of the lads shit on it, and put it in his room or something like that. I don't know, shit in it, and then but left it all night. So when they came back the next morning, it had burnt all the pewter off of this thing. So this sort of memorable thing, and I remember it was a French player who told me. I won't tell you who did it, but he sort of created this whole sort of sub story to get away with it, but one of the players cottoned on and was like, "You fucking did that." So it's just stuff like that. Guys disappearing off tour. Like one guy in Japan, 2019, when he vaporized for 48 hours. We still don't know where he went or what he did, but he came back a very broken man. You know, there's been guys. I remember one player went to the Churchill Cup, and he had, you know, just as technology was sort of really coming in, and he's, you know, he was obviously playing up behind his partner's back, and his iPad was connected, his phone was connected to his iPad. And I remember his partner was obviously reading all these messages that he was messaging another girl. She just fucking cleaned out his accounts. And he basically just landed on this tour, cleaned out all his accounts, did everything, fucking was like, you know, and he then had to spend a whole week with no money, no nothing. She cancelled everything, left him. And another guy came back, and his partner left him, and she'd shredded, had emptied his entire house, pulled the carpets up and left and take the lights fixtures off the wall and left a knife, a fork, a table, a TV on the floor, and no chairs, and just fucked off and took everything. But I mean, if you play up that, that's the price you have to pay.
My wife, producer Nicola, is absolutely loving this story.
Yeah. But it was so ruthless. And then another guy, he was away on an away game, and he came back and she'd emptied his house, shredded his passport, burnt all his shit, and taken everything. But like light fixtures, bulbs, to nothing. Like there was literally
Bulbs?
nothing. They'd done everything. But unscrewed the switch plates off the walls. Left the electric, so it just fucking did everything. But again, man, they say nothing. No, it's nothing worse than a woman scorned. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
You play a dangerous game, you pay the price.
Yeah, fuck about and find out.
Exactly.
So let's talk about life after rugby then, man. Because obviously after finishing up, retiring, did you feel a bit lost after playing, or did it give you more time to explore other interests like the podcast, obviously Good Bad Rugby with Mike Tyndall and Alex, hugely. Apparently, it's the world's most popular rugby podcast.
It is the most popular rugby podcast. I mean, there's a few pretenders to the throne who claim it isn't, but in terms of sort of revenue and numbers, some have been going longer, so they probably have a slightly bigger fan base. But in terms of numbers and reach, it really excels. I mean, I retired 2018. I tried sort of last England go 2018, retired 2019, went straight into COVID, which was mad. And then basically all my audience was public facing. I'd built a career kind of doing speaking and TV. I went straight into I'm a Celebrity 2019.
I'm coming on to that.
Yeah, which was again crazy and sort of some editing probably didn't do me a favor. And so that was a really weird time. And I traveled a lot. I think I went to like 7 countries and in a very short period of time, and then COVID happened, and I sort of, realised I didn't have any qualification to do anything else. And all my career had been built around wanting to DJ, wanting to make music, publicly speak. I mean, the podcast we got, the Good, the Bad Rugby, we used to have it under a different name. We were talent in that podcast. They basically took an amazing amount of money that we didn't know they had, fucked it. Went bust, and one day and then didn't pay me 50 grand that they owed me for a year's worth or 2 years worth of stuff, and then just went. Oh, by the way, after podcast, we've gone bust, and then we launched Good Bad Rugby out of it during lockdown. My ex said to me, I was doing a podcast like this. I'd done like 3 or 4 podcasts in a day for different people, and I was sort of sitting there. I was like, what the fuck am I doing in my life? And she was like, well, you need to go back to what you enjoy. You're a massive performer. You obviously understand you're a show off. And I was a bit like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, you obviously, you love doing it. Write your autobiography, go and do those things you need to do. So I wrote my autobiography. It became a Sunday Times bestseller and lots of bits off the back of it while making music and DJing and traveling. So I kind of did have forged a good life, but there was moments where I was lost, didn't understand what I was doing. I'd lost my identity. I went into training in Northampton on a Tuesday, said to the lads I'm retiring, and then on Wednesday I was just James Haskell. I wasn't James Haskell, the rugby player.
Yeah.
I had no other qualifications. I'd obviously been, shrewd with some of my investments and pensions and bits and pieces. I'd been smart, but I didn't earn enough money not to work.
Is that the point that you were thinking about going back to JCB?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and that's actually when I started for that 3-fight deal to fight MMA for.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, this is fucking wild. You went into MMA, right?
Yeah, so I'd always trained jiu-jitsu and wrestling at London Shoot Fighters in London to help my tackling, footwork in terms of going into contact. I got offered this deal. I probably missed sport, couldn't play, but wanted to go and train, wanted to test myself. Spent a year doing that. In the interim, I went to I'm a Celebrity, which messed up the training, but I sort of trained in the jungle, but they never showed it.
Right.
So we used to train all the time. And then as my calories depleted, I was fully unable to train anymore. I couldn't even keep my eyes open. I was getting dizzy all the time.
Yeah, because I saw an interview with Ant and Dec when you were in the jungle as you were coming out, and you were saying about how like the food situation in there was really, really difficult for you, because obviously you consume, as a rugby player, you would have consumed a shit load of calories.
I was doing, when I was fighting, it was probably up to like 4,500, 5,000 calories at a time. Wow. I mean, that jungle, they told me you would get 1,200 calories per day, which is nothing. But if you won some stars, you'd win more food. You'd probably go up to 1,800 maybe, but still really low. But actually, it was more like 300 calories a day. And then if you won some food, but if you won the food, it was like a fucking crocodile's ankle, a cabbage, and something and a bit of fruit you'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And then obviously a lot of people couldn't prepare it. One day we had eel. Like if anyone's, you have to gut an eel to do that properly. I mean, I'd eat anything. And actually, off the back of it, in Western civilization, we used to bacon and eggs, pancakes, bits for breakfast.
Yeah.
Obviously, go to China, India, they eat whatever they eat for
Yeah,
breakfast.
yeah.
Japan, I'd play games and they'd have miso soup, you'd have fish, you'd have some eggs, but it was very different. Off the back of that jungle, this morning I had breakfast, I had some chicken and couscous thing. Because I can eat anything at any time now.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
yeah.
It's not. I'd probably still draw the line at curry, as that's a fucking real taste sensation to have in the morning. And something that can repeat on yourself all day. But it's still a lot. Eating that.
Especially at that point in the morning.
9 o'clock in the morning. But again, you'd ask the Chinese, what we eat, it's mental.
Yeah,
to them.
true.
So
Yeah,
it kind of it taught me different, but you'd have 300 calories. You'd eat 4 or 5 spoonfuls of beans, white beans. They give you a bit of olive oil, but fats are obviously much more calorific. So if they even put butter with it or gave you something more, no salt and pepper, no nothing. So you're just literally having a little bit of oil and beans, and it's just nothing. And then you have rice for breakfast and beans for lunch, depending.
Yeah,
and then you win the stuff. So I lost 12 kgs in 18 days.
Wow.
The way I got through the jungle was, everyone found it very kind of life-changing, cathartic. It was actually like being on pre-season for me. It was like in a hot destination with people you don't really know, in shit accommodation, eating shittish food, just doing stuff, and some of it's a lot of sitting around. The thing about the jungle is, people at home think that they are punishing people by giving them challenges.
Yeah.
They're absolutely not. It's mental. You give. So when Hancock, whatever his first name is, went in there, everyone gave him every challenge. All they did was give him a shop window to showcase himself. He had the best fucking time.
Yeah.
He did every single challenge. The way to punish someone is never vote for them. Leave him in that jungle eating beans and rice with no challenges in the sun, sitting around with people who all they talk about is food, who get tired, who get moody, who miss their families, who then sit around talking about wild shit, and hence you get kind of arguments and stuff. So it's but it was amazing, but it's exactly as you see on TV. No luxuries, no nothing.
Yeah.
They sort of treat you a bit like prisoners. They put your bags on your head, drive you to places. They don't tell you the time. The staff that take you there won't speak to you. So they take you to places, won't tell you what's going on in the world, won't speak to you, won't let you know anything.
Yeah.
You go, you do the challenge, you stink of shit and bugs, and all the bugs they give you are obviously farmed bugs. So they're not like, they don't dig up like some crocodiles or bugs. They're all sort of factory made bugs, but they all stink because of what you feed them. So you've got no shower, you have to go to the waterfall, you're tired, you wake up, I had a leech on my arm, I had a fucking spider the size of a cat in my bed. There's just loads of stuff, but it is amazing TV, and again, but the way that's changed. When I first got asked to do it, I'd never watched an episode of it. I don't watch reality TV. I don't watch a lot of TV anyway. I watch movies really. Like this morning for breakfast while I was eating my chicken with hot sauce, I'm watching the final series of 24 with Jack Bauer. I never saw it.
Yeah.
So a bit of action moving, gun violence in the morning is not really a problem for me. And I watched it all, but it's a religion that I'm a Slave. People absolutely love it.
I love it. I would love to do it. It's been a childhood dream of mine to get on there.
And people do it. But they, when I got to, so basically I was in the car on the way to the airport to fly out there. We'd spoken, and she was going to come to the airport. Oh shit, but she didn't. And we were sort of talking about different stuff. And she said, "Have you watched some?" I said, "No." So I watched the highlights. Man, I was in this car, and I had my Bluetooth headphones on my laptop. And there's one where one of these reality girls got a spider, huntsman spider in a glass, span it round so its legs curled up, and then swallowed and ate it. And I was like literally gagging my mouth shut, my laptop, but the sound was still playing in my headphones. The driver was like, "You're right." I was like, right. And I thought, I literally ran my ex. I was like, "What the fuck have you signed?" Why signed? I said, "I can't eat this shit. I hate spiders." I told them I didn't care. I didn't mind anything. I didn't like, because of course, as soon as you tell them anything, they give it to you. So I was like, I made some joke that I was terrified of hot women in a hot tub, and that I'd absolutely hate to be put in there. They obviously didn't sort that out, but buried alive, I didn't care. All this kind of stuff I didn't mind. But eating bugs was bad. But because of animal rights, you can't do it anymore.
Of course,
and you have to treat animals very when we were doing challenges and they're like trying to win these stars and they're timing it, they're like, oh, be careful of the animals. I was like, fuck them animals. I don't want to hurt any animals ever.
Yeah.
But they're dropping spiders and bugs, and you're trying to get your hands in stuff, and there's like stuff is stepping on, and they're like, or if something gets in the way, brush it lightly out of the way. You're in the dark, and there's a crab the size of a dog, and you can't see it, and it's like coming. You're like, get fucked. And so I understand they've got feelings and stuff as well, and I wouldn't ever if something goes in the house, I'll catch it and let it go.
Let it go. Yeah.
But I'm winning food here. There's a pecking order of hierarchy. And so, I wouldn't go out my way to do it. But that was quite fun. I got told off because they're like putting snakes on you, like, be gentle with the snakes. You're like, oh my God.
Are they going to be gentle with me?
That's what I mean. But again, they've all been fed. There's no chance you get anything. But, the rankest thing was some cockroach crawled in someone's ear.
Oh.
And that you have to get that fucker out because you can hear it digging against your eardrum. So they then have to put water in it, pull it out. It's like rank.
Yeah. It always reminds me of the Fatima Whitbread one where she had to like snot rocket it out.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff like that. But I mean, and also there's things like they have things in Australia called bush turkeys, and they're running around. And I was like literally looking at these all day. I'm going to kill one of these and eat one of them. But apparently their stomachs are full of worms. Now I don't know whether that's true. But they were basically like, don't get, because I was just going to cut one up and just have a little roast turkey. I mean, I don't know how I was going to get it. But I trust me, when you've got enough time in your hands, you're sitting around under the sun, I would have hunted anything to eat. But I sort of never got hungry enough to eat a spider, though.
Really, yeah.
You'd have to go a long way, like some of the Chinese eating spiders and scorpions.
Yeah.
Because, unless you can tell me it's going to taste like a Cadbury's caramel, which we all know it ain't, I'm never eating that.
So... Okay, so podcast, tick. MMA, tick.
Yeah.
I'm a celeb, tick.
Yeah.
DJ career, we lightly touched on it. Where did your love for music and DJing come from?
So it comes back to my days of therapy. So I basically, one of the things that we first started, Jill first got me to do back in the day was to listen to music as a tool to change state. Because there's a saying that where focus goes, energy flows. And if you're having an argument, you're feeling down, and you listen to an upbeat song, you will change your mood because there's a very emotive effect in music. That's why we love it. So understanding that you could create a curated playlist that would have a real effect on your mood, building up to that intensity. Like this morning in the gym, I was filming yesterday from 9:30 in the morning to 11:30 at night. And I woke up and I had a PT session this morning. The reason I had a PT session was because I wouldn't have got out of bed if someone was making me accountable. And I'd learned lots of little lessons. If you know you're not going to do it, and you can afford it, pay someone to fucking do it because you're not going to throw money away. It's the same way as if you, sometimes even in an argument, if you metaphorically think, if I argue with that person, I'd have to send them money, you won't do it because you don't want to give money. You wouldn't want to give your worst enemy £100 if you had to do it. So those kind of little tricks and tips, and the music was out the back of that. And I sort of created loads of playlists and it really helped. And I was one of the first ones in my team to listen to music pre-game. Nobody listened to music. I used to put, this is 2003, 4, 5, 6, players weren't listening. They had big speakers in change rooms. Not many people sat around and listened to headphones. iPod first came out. You started to be able to build playlists in iTunes, and that changed the game. And you started getting your own music that you liked. So I started doing that, and then I kind of around 21, started going to Las Vegas. On the piss for the lads post-season, started going to places like Wet Republic and all these big pool parties. You'd see DJs at the front and they'd be controlling everyone's mood. It was beautiful people. The sun was shining. All the attention was on them. I was like, I love the technology, the kind of the even the vinyl, but more latterly kind of the CDJs and stuff. And I was a real tech nerd. I loved buying drones and cameras and shit like that. And I just fell in love with it. And then I started going to Ibiza about 24. Again, same vibe. And I thought, you know what? I had an opportunity to get some DJ lessons. Realised you could go and sign up to like colleges to go and do it. I did a course at a place called Subbase, which has now gone bust. Did it for 6 months. Did my DJ lesson. At the end of it, if you were good enough, you got to play at Ministry of Sound on a night they hosted. I did that, fell in love with it. It ticked all the boxes that I used to get for rugby: performance, preparation, crowd adulation, adrenaline, intensity, the nerd factor of the CDJs, the tech, finding music, discovering new sounds. I met some amazing people on the way. Jaguar Skills gave me a DJ lesson. Seb Fontaine gave me a DJ lesson. Simon Dunmore gave me a DJ lesson from Defected. Simon Dunmore completely changed the taste I had in music. I used to go to Tomorrowland in the off season, other places. I really liked EDM. He sold me soul, funk, the Defected stuff, different vibes. I completely went away from EDM. And then I started getting into tech house. And then I basically got a DJ agent, and he was like, "You're never going to make any money DJing." I said, "Well, I don't want to. I just want to play. Just get me gigs." First gig he booked me was $3,000 for an hour. I was like, "Mate, that is a lot of money."
That'll do.
I was like, "That is a lot of money." And then basically from aged, what was it? Probably 20. How old am I now? 40. I think from age like 28, I started playing out. 27 playing out. Did all the university circuits. I've been around the world doing it. I started making music 2021.
Yeah.
I've had 32 records out on different labels. I've got another one coming out next week.
Well, I was going to say to you, you've got Magic Pills coming out something, right?
Magic Pills is out. So
Oh,
it's out. It's out. I've got a track called Anthems coming out next week.
Oh, okay, nice.
I think it's next week. Oh no, shit, maybe it's this Friday. Fuck. I've got stuff coming out every month, and so I started making music to get more recognised. And I'm still trying to do it. I'm still, I've had Skepta's played my stuff, Fisher's played my stuff. Loads of them. Seb Fontaine's played my music. Loads of Carlita, Mochak, Mark's played it. Loads of big artists have played my stuff. Playing on Radio 1.
Yeah, we have.
But you're only one click. You're only one song away from getting more recognised. And actually, of all the things I do, DJing is the thing that I want to do more of than anything else. If I could DJ 3 or 4 times a week, I'd be a very happy man. I'd cut back on a lot of the other stuff. I'd still do the rugby podcast. I'd just be dad all the rest of the time, and then just travel the world doing that. But that's what a lot of people's dreams are, and it's become a lot more now about. Can you get big on TikTok? Can you be your own social media manager? Can you do everything else? And it's not just about the music. But I see a lot of people get criticism. I can properly DJ. I spent so much time learning and going and doing it and reskilling myself and practicing. People still say, "Oh, you don't DJ on vinyl, so you're not a proper DJ." But it's the same way as I don't fucking ride a horse.
Yeah.
I drive to work.
Yeah.
I could ride a horse. Riding a horse is fun. Riding a horse is cool. They were great. But why would I ride a horse when I can drive a car? And so it's sort of one of that mad mentality where people are like, "We were only, I'm only a real man if I ride a horse to work." It's the same. It's the same analogy. So there's a lot of angry old vinyl players getting upset, and you've got guys now playing Tractor and Serato, creating huge moments, spectacles, and performance. But that landscape's changed again. So I'm probably slightly late to it. But I love it, and the music. I love making music now. I've done 5 production courses, tool room. All the tool room ones, which are incredible. I can make music. I can do it. I was making something before you came in today. So kind of, that's my journey. But it's the hardest thing I do. It's the thing that doesn't pay me really anything. And and I've played to 1,000-person venues with nobody in it.
Wow.
I played to Drumshed, 15,000 people. When I first came on, there was no one in the room. By the time I finished, it was like 500 people. But I've done that. I've driven up and down the country. I've played on fucking, tech that you couldn't know, nothing works on it. I've been through all that. So my journey, when I do make it, will be great, and no one will ever say I didn't earn my spurs because I've
put the fucking hours in. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, fucking absolutely, man. James, I want to bring it back to rugby just for a second because, as I said to you earlier, I've got a huge love and affinity for my hometown rugby club, Harlow Rugby Club. So I actually reached out to them and asked if there was some questions, and there was some great responses. Couldn't get through them all, so I love you all dearly, but can't get through them all. This one is actually from my Uncle Terry, who's a lifetime member.
Hello, Uncle Terry.
So he asks, what's your favourite and least favourite stadium internationally to play in? And he said, least favourite is because of opposing fans.
So my favourite is the Principality in Wales. Over Twickenham. I mean, Twickenham is amazing rugby heartland, but it's not a very hostile environment. The crowd can go missing pretty quickly because it's a corporate crowd. Principality is just wild. They're so much closer to the field. I'd say my least favourite is Murrayfield.
Really?
Again, basically they're always destroying England dreams up there, but in terms of infrastructure, it's an old stadium. The pitch is further back from the stands. It's always raining. It's never particularly wild up there. In terms of crowd wise, it's just it just doesn't have a lot of good memories. I've not really played up there a lot, so I'd say them. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. Thank you, Uncle Terry Mosley. From one Mosley to another, I'm going to my brother-in-law now, Big Dan, because he's a 6'6" rugby player.
Yeah.
So my brother-in-law says, are you a fan of the playoff system that decides the winners of the Gallagher Premiership?
Yeah, I am. I think Wasps capitalised on it. We wouldn't have won the Premiership, so we had. I think we finished third and fourth a couple of times and still won. I love it. I think it creates more jeopardy, more excitement. Everyone understands what's going on. And I think it creates big moments. And actually, rugby needs big moments. The Premiership football sells itself 10,000 times over. Rugby needs that moment of excitement. So yeah, 100%.
Nice. Okay, thank you, Dan Mosley. Right, club president Alan Price has got in contact. Why are the RFU favouring Premiership and international rugby but freezing community rugby out by reducing funds and support?
I think there's two things for this. I think firstly, this might not be the answer that you want, but it's a fact. There needs to be a massive separation between professional sport and the club game. Grassroots rugby is essential to lots of things in terms of community, creating sort of vibes, teaching kids lessons, having passion, getting kids into it, and yes, being a feeder pathway, but it isn't essential. And I think when you've got a professional sport that is about entertainment, making money, growing the game, creating heroes, the two don't mix. And if you've got an amateur board and a professional board, you should not have amateur people making decisions on professional sport. Right. One is a completely separate game, and so I think the grassroots games needs funding 100%. I played at Maidenhead from 5 to 16. I love it. It taught me lots of lessons. But I think you look at NFL, amateur NFL is not it's not essential to a successful thing. And so I think you've got to understand that the two need to be separated. The business model of the top level game needs hugely overhauling to make it more successful. And then the funding needs to come down to the grassroots and how sustainable these clubs are. And actually, what people have to understand is that rugby doesn't really make any money. So if you've got a facility or a training ground, it's how can you make that training ground work all the hours that aren't a Sunday when you've got the mini section and the club games. Yeah. You've got one day out of 7. Could you put in paddle courts? Could you do other community events? Could you turn the clubhouse into a creche? Whatever it is, all those things to generate the money to then support the rugby on the weekend, as well as giving the RFU some funding. But there just isn't the money there to do it. And I think if you separate the top of the game, made it a much more watchable experience, made it much more like American sport, generated much more income. I think they turned it into it's a $4 billion thing, NFL and American sport. And I think it's just, how do you capture that? But again, I think the two are just not intertwined. The people who believe it's essential, it's not. Grassroots rugby is essential, but not for the reasons that it's being used for. And I think the funding needs to be driven by clubs, and you can't have as many clubs. And lots of people, I've been to places where there's 4 clubs in one town and shit like that, but rugby won't traditionally, there's lots of rugby does stuff and has always done stuff, so that's the reason to carry on doing that particular stuff. Was I'm not looking at evolution, not looking at how to run it properly, not looking at how to drive profits. Not very particularly well. A lot of business acumen. A lot of guys are sort of older, out of touch, don't understand social media and that kind of stuff. So all those things are an issue. So I don't think. I don't know enough about where the RFU allocate the funding, but I do certainly know that. The top level of the game, could potentially die on the vine if it doesn't sort itself out. Yeah.
Another question, similar vein, is Simon Cook said, "Is rugby financially sustainable?" We've seen Wasps, London Irish, Worcester, they're all gone.
Yeah. So I was told. So I wrote a foreword report by Leonard Curtis, the big resolvency big restructuring company, like Deloitte's doing football. First year. We lost 3 teams, so 10 teams were balance sheet insolvent, and 10 teams didn't make a profit, 7 teams were balance sheet insolvent. Second year round, 10 teams didn't make a profit, 6 teams were balance sheet insolvent. Now, I was told by certain people in power that actually that wasn't correct. The forecasts are brilliant. That some of the figures and how the money's being used is owner putting money in, how that's calculated and whatever changes the figures. I think there's lots of really good stuff around rugby. I think the product on the field's great. I think there are some nice signs in terms of international growth, albeit grow quite slowly. Red Roses winning a World Cup, great. Hasn't really. I think they lost millions on that tournament, but you've got to take a risk to deliver it. 7 series has kind of been killed because they went from being 7 tournament that would go to sort of host countries and put them on to putting the events on themselves, and having lost. I think it was like, again, these figures are hyperbolic, but you can check them, but not million miles away. From something losing like 3 million to 20 million. By putting their own events on, not knowing how to do them, that changed the whole sevens landscape. And so, but I think with the Prem, you got an uptake of people watching it. You've got some decent TV rights stuff. Still massively underpaid. France is by far and away ahead of us. They're looking at maybe changing to franchise models. So look, there's lots of bits in place. I went on basic accountants' figures and was told what I was told.
Yeah.
I was told some of that wasn't right. So you can only make it. Would I say, is there a wealth of riches? Do I think rugby is still doing rugby things? Yes. Do I want the game to go really well? Yes. I'm sort of done criticising it overtly because, it ain't going to change, and we'll just see what's going to happen. But I think people are trying desperately to make it a more watchable thing. I think it's still issues around developing heroes. If you walk down the street, how many people could name any of the England rugby team? That's a press piece, an information piece, a concern over allowing players to be what they're like. You look at the UFC, Dana White, all his faults. Yeah. People know about the UFC. People do it. They're not scared to reinvent the wheel. They're able to put their head above the parapet. Don't always get it right. There's lots of fucking lunatics who speak a lot of shit on that UFC, but they let them do it. Yeah. Rugby players are very much managed, media managed. And you want young players, men and women, both to have heroes that they can look up to. Yeah. Until we do that and build a product and get viewing figures up, get TV rights up, get sponsorship rights up, then I think we're probably in a stable place. But how long that lasts, I don't know.
Yeah, fair. Jumbo Clark says, what current back row players would you have liked to have played alongside? If any.
I mean, in my time, I got to play with Sergio Parise, won the Gizemon. I got to play against Richard McCaw when I played with Hinders and for England a number of times. PSBs, modern guys. I mean, Sam Warburton, Talupi Falatau, Sean O'Brien. I mean, I was kind of sport. In terms of modern guys, I think some of the French guys, Gregory Aldrit would have been quite cool to play against. Henry Pollock, I'd love to see what he was like as just someone with a high energy. Ben Earl, he was. I played against him a number of times, but he was quite young when I was playing. He's obviously tearing up trees. It'd be interesting to play with him. I'm trying to think again. Hooper and Pollock, I would. Pocock, Hooper and Pocock, I would have loved to have played against, but would love to play with. But I was sort of really sport for that. But Ardi Sevilla would be a one to play. He's pretty sensational. But there's always more talent. But I think in my generation was kind of spoilt for a wealth of incredible players.
Yeah, I agree. Tasha Stallman says, would you be willing to do a training session at the Harlow Rugby Club and maybe even share some of your top tips to get grassroots rugby noticed again?
Who was that? What's that lady called?
Tasha Stallman.
Well done, Tasha. You've basically backed me into a corner now, so I can't. So I can't say I can't say no. I will be honest with you. If I schedule can do it, I'd love to try and come down. Whether that's possible, I don't know. People ask me all the time to do stuff like this. Trying to get to do this podcast is hard enough. So
our diaries just were mad.
I'm saying that I'd love to try and do it, but I'm not going to commit to anything on a podcast. But if we can try to make something work, I'm sure. But if I said yes to all the people who'd like me to come down to a training session, I'd never work again. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. I'll do my best, Tash.
Yeah.
Tracy Crump says, your favourite teammate at any level and why?
I mean, my best mate, Paul Doran Jones, was a teammate a few times. We were thick as thieves. We work together now. I've got a property auction. Well, he's got a property auction business that I work with, so we speak all the time. But he was always great. Dangerous, but always great.
Really?
Yeah.
Why was he dangerous?
Well, no, just in terms of like it could. Most friendships, you need someone to go. Do you think we should do this? Instead of going, no, he just go, okay. And that's the problem. That's why it's dangerous, because you just come up with like some, wild ideas and plans and stuff. I mean, we laugh all the time, but when he was a teammate, he was particularly funny. Yeah.
Brilliant. And last question is from a dear friend of mine, Elliot Banks. If 17-year-old James Haskell walked into the room now, what advice would you give him?
This is going to, again, be maybe slightly jarring, but I would say you need to back yourself more. Don't take everything. Take it as seriously as you took it in terms of work. Don't take it seriously. It's a game. Enjoy yourself. Believe in yourself. Try and play like you're going to play. Make a highlight reel the whole time. Win or losing doesn't matter. It's just about having that fun and trying to create as many memories as you possibly can. And also stop getting caught up in politics and what people think. It really doesn't matter. If you want someone to be a dick, let them do it.
Yeah, fair. Right, James. The podcast is called Wrapping My Head Around It.
Yeah.
So I ask every guest, what's one thing that you've never wrapped your head around, or something that you've wrapped your head around recently?
I mean, why not wrap my head around? Marriage? No. I mean, I have as many deficits in my arsenal, but maths and accounts is a massive one. I'm just, numerically illiterate in lots of areas with that, so that's always a hard one. I get better as I go on, but my sort of dyslexia and stuff is just terrible with numbers and stuff. So that's a real thing, because if I was probably more astute in that area, I'd probably be more wealthy. I'm good with Mike and Alex, my co-hosts. I'm kind of quite good at ideation and delivery. Alex is brilliant at ideation, following through, and numbers, and Tins is very good at numbers as well and stuff.
Nice.
So wrap my head around stuff like that's tricky. I'm trying to think about what have I wrapped my head around recently. I mean, I'm always learning. I listen to audiobooks all the time. I literally live in my car, so I'm always I listen to a lot of fictional books, but I kind of try and wrap my head around stuff. In terms of some manifestation, visualization stuff, I'm doing a bit more of that. So I'd say wrap my head around it, but I understand a little bit more about it.
Yeah, nice. Right, last question then, mate, for you, because I want to find out what you're up to in 2026. What's going on? I know that you've got Celebs Going Dating coming soon. Any tea, any goss you can give us a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild show. The celebs are amazing. There's some incredible dates and stories and bits. There's some of the most awkward TV I've ever seen and been involved with. So that's coming out around April time, I think. I've got music coming out, as I said, every month now till June, July. So that's very exciting for me. I'm headlining a show in Dubrovnik. I'm going to Val Thorens 25th, 26th, 27th of March, depending when this comes out, might be out already. And then I was going to Dubai, but that's been cancelled.
Yeah.
I'm looking to get other gigs, trying to do some stuff in America. I'm launching my own label. I've got a James Haskell athlete plan, which is coaching and stuff, but kind of advice for men and mentoring. We're launching some stuff around there. The podcast rolls on. There's lots of exciting bits to look forward to, but every day is very different. I'm hoping to do a bit more TV, but we'll see.
Nice. And you're going to take a break in between all of that as well?
No. I'm like a shark. If I stop swimming, I'll have to confront all the voices in my head. and nobody wants that,
Oh, James, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. And good luck with everything in 2026.
Thanks, pal.
Nice.
Cheers, brother.
Mate, thank you so much.